Hey guys, so we have a little bit of a different setup today. I just wanted to showcase more Halloween decor, especially in this video because it's going to be kind of spooky vibes. But also at my couch setting, you just can't see a lot of my Halloween decor, and like it is the season. October's almost over already. Well, yeah, it's almost over actually. We also have some nice ambiance in the background. I love these ambiance channels where you just put on like haunted house, or the Harry Potter ones are my favorite, but I will link this specific video down below if you just want these vibes in your house too. Anyway, I recommend grabbing a snack or a hot drink if you live somewhere where it's not 90 degrees. Here in California, it is still 90 degrees. This will be a very long video, so much so that I will do it in 2 parts because I got so many stories and I just want to read more stories than I did last year and give you 2 videos of me reading your ghost stories. Me, a skeptic, reading your ghost stories. So please don't take it personally if I question anything in your story or I don't believe in it or anything like that. It's just for fun. It's for entertainment purposes, and I get to share your scary stories because I don't have any of my own. I also want to mention, sorry, this intro is getting very long. I want to mention that I'm on TikTok now. I caved and started making TikToks, so if you want to see cringy TikToks, go over to my TikTok account. I'll have my username down below. Well, it's this is my username on TikTok. Go follow me. I make horror content and Harry Potter content on there, so if either of those interests you, go check it out. And before we get into the stories, again, sorry this intro, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of different types of classes that can be motivating or creative to fuel your hobbies or develop new skills. Creative challenges and productivity classes are a really great way to structure your days a little bit more, especially in these uncertain times that we're in right now. There's literally classes for everyone on Skillshare on anything you can think of. You can look up more productive self-care routines on there. You can look up stuff if you're just bored and you want to learn some new things. I've been finding a little bit more motivation to write my book, which will be a collection of short stories. I cannot wait to share that with you guys one day because I'm so passionate about it. But they have so many creative writing courses and stuff specifically for short fiction, which is amazing. So a class that I personally started taking recently is called Writing Character-Driven Short Stories by Yuyan Lee, which has been super helpful in developing my characters since I have such a limited amount of words to work with, given that I write short fiction. The first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. After that, it's only around $10 a month. All right, now we're gonna get into the ghost stories. So the first one we're going to read is actually from my friend Veronica. She's a fellow YouTuber, although I don't think she posts consistently or anything like that, or is like an active YouTuber, but I will link people who want to remain anonymous. I'll keep anonymous, of course, and the ones who want credit I will link in the description, so you'll find it by story 1, story 2 kind of thing. So I will link Veronica's Twitter and Instagram down below if you are curious. Trying to pin down one story is really hard, so I think I'll just tell a couple of the strange experiences from my childhood home and then tell a story from a more recent experience at an academic conference. Interesting. I was expecting a lot of stories to be in houses, like haunted houses, but an academic conference, that's interesting setting for a ghost story. My mom and I lived in this house for just over 10 years. The house wasn't particularly old, probably built in the 60s or 70s. Probably sounds very typical, but the house just always felt very occupied. Whenever I was alone in the house or just alone in my room, I frequently felt like I was being watched or that someone else was near me. There was quite a bit of activity in my bedroom and the bathrooms, and a few things happened in our kitchen. I was around 10 years old, and one time I was sitting in my room on the floor watching TV, and I realized that the closet door was open. I've always been a bit fearful of closets. I'm afraid of the dark. So whenever I noticed that the closet door was open, I always took it upon myself to get up and shut it. So I got up, walked over to the closet door, and shut it. I sat back down on the ground and started watching TV again. I had a strange sense that I should look back at the closet door, and so I did, and it was wide open. I saw a figure in my home on more than one occasion of an older man wearing a hat. He would walk through the kitchen. He wasn't super clear. I couldn't make out details, but I could tell that he was older, not super tall, and would just move through the kitchen. I remember telling my mom about this and a lot of other experiences, and she always insisted that there was nothing in the house. She was trying to make me feel better and not let myself get too scared, but recently we have revisited these experiences and she has told me some surprising things. When I was young and during the same time that I would see this man, my mom said she would also see a man in the house, older, probably wearing some sort of hat, making his rounds through the kitchen. Additionally, my mom also shared with me that she has had her own experiences outside of seeing the older man. She told me she would be cleaning my room and my stereo system would turn itself on, change radio stations, play whatever CD was in it, change songs, etc. This was a common occurrence and it happened when I was alone in my room as well. Interesting stuff. I will say as a skeptic, I can't explain that obviously, why things are moved on their own, like a closet door opening. I've never had that experience in my life, or something turning on suddenly. And part of me, like, I want to believe in this so bad. I want to believe in ghosts because I think they would actually be like beneficial. I don't think that they would want to cause harm, even though I know that some claim there are ghosts that cause harm. I don't believe in that. Definitely don't believe in that. But I think having a ghost in the house would be really cool. Is that just me? I don't know. I wish it was real and I wish I could believe in life after death because I would want to be a ghost. Okay, let's continue on Veronica's story, and this is the one that takes place at her academic conference. Now on to one of the most intense experiences that happened in adulthood. In 2018, along with my colleagues, traveled to Atlanta, Georgia for a conference. The conference was downtown, but we stayed in a cute little house in one of the neighboring areas. I have to admit, we did watch The Haunting of Hill House while we were there, so maybe we were primed for what happened later, but regardless, I fully believe that the house was very haunted. So it is a house. I was kind of thinking when she said academic conference, it was like conference room or like a big building kind of situation, but it is a house. That makes sense. Okay. The strange things that happened mostly took place when we were all in bed. It's hard to describe the layout of the house, but as you walk into the home, the first bedroom is on the right and the second bedroom is connected to the first, both through the hall, and is also connected by an actual door in each of the rooms. The third bedroom is the furthest back, and you can only get into that room if you first walk into the second bedroom. The third bedroom does not have its own door. It is directly connected to the second bedroom. Sorry if that's confusing. I was staying in the second bedroom, two of my friends stayed in the first bedroom, and then my friend Anne stayed in the third one, connected to Veronica's room. The kitchen was small, somewhat of a galley style kitchen, and it was basically across from bedrooms 1 and 2 and was about the length of the two of them. The first night I heard someone walking around the kitchen, open up the refrigerator and get a snack. Nothing too strange at first. Later in the night I briefly woke up and opened my eyes just slightly. I saw a figure very tall to the right of me, right next to the closet door. The figure was dark and floating and appeared to be wearing a long coat or something. The figure then moved very slowly to the doorway of bedroom number 3, Anne's room. From there, I didn't see it enter the room or anything, it just sort of faded away. It took me a while, but I finally fell back asleep. The next morning we were all chatting and Kathy mentions that she heard either Anne or I get up in the middle of the night to get a snack. I mentioned that I didn't get a snack and that I also heard someone get up to get a snack, so it must have been Anne, which I don't think could be true since I didn't see her get up at all. But I thought to myself, maybe I slept through it. However, Anne told us that she also did not get up and get a snack. I didn't mention the figure because I assumed it was something that I imagined or I had dreamt. I tried not to think about it too much. Of course, this was strange and we all felt a little uneasy about it since two of us have heard the exact same thing. We all felt slightly more on edge as we went to sleep, but hoped it was just us being primed to hear strange things from watching Hill House. The next night comes around and I do hear some footsteps again early in the night, but eventually go back to sleep. I wake again at a similar time in the middle of the night and see the same dark figure move across the room, linger in the bedroom 3 doorway, and then fade away. We all wake up the next morning and most of us seem as if we have something to share. Turns out that the second night, Kathy in bedroom 1, as she was facing Aaron with her back to the edge of the bed, felt someone push on her back in the middle of the night. It made her jump and look around the room, but no one was there. Anne also looked like she had something to share and ended up saying that she saw a tall, dark figure float into the doorway of her bedroom in the exact same place that I saw a similar figure. I've had a lot of experiences throughout my life, but only in that house in Atlanta had I experienced the exact same thing as other people, and we could all corroborate each other's experiences. Veronica does clarify later in the email that she absolutely does not have sleep paralysis, since she often sits up to look at the figures that appear in her room. So obviously stories of multiple people that corroborate each other's story is harder to debunk, I think, but since I was not there, I don't know. I can't explain it either. I think it's interesting that they both saw the same thing. But thank you, Veronica, for your story and sharing that with us, letting me share it with my viewers. It was very interesting and entertaining, and you wrote it very well, so thank you. So this next one comes from Brett. He didn't link any social media or say he wanted to be anonymous, so I'm assuming I can use his name. I've had a few spooky experiences in my life, but this is probably the most notable. In the summer of 2004, my parents decided they wanted to move us into a larger home. It was them, myself, and my younger brother. After a month or so of hunting around, they found a home that they fell in love with immediately. It was a tri-level home in a small neighborhood on the outskirts of town. It was beautiful with hardwood floors and completely updated rooms. There was just one catch. The price was too good to be true. That's like my dream home, to find a house that's like super cheap because something happened there or it's haunted or something, and then I live in it, because I don't believe in paranormal stuff, so I would be fine. I'd be chilling in a house like that, get a really good deal. That's my dream. When asked about the price, the realtor told my parents something that they kept hidden from my brother and I for 2 years, though that didn't stop us from figuring it out. The previous owner had died in the home, and it was not by natural causes. I won't go into details out of respect, but he died horribly in the garage. Thank you, because I'd probably get demonetized as well. We lived in that house until 2013. Over the course of that time, we experienced a lot of the typical haunting things you would expect. It was normal to hear footsteps on the floor above you while you were home alone, or to see and hear doors closing. Our pets would act oddly and get scared over nothing. Sometimes there would be loud bangs from the kitchen for no reason, like someone was slapping the countertop. This noise scared my mom enough that she had the cops search our house on multiple occasions because she was so convinced someone was there with her. The middle floor and the upstairs hallway both made everyone in the house uncomfortable, so much so that my brother and I both would run through those areas to get out of them. There was a constant feeling of being watched in that house, but particularly in those areas. The feeling of dread that the house created in people was so strong my brother and I had never had any friends over. All of that pales in comparison to two specific things that happened in that house. First off, I would like to say I am not one to lose my temper about things. Things just don't make me mad. In that house though, I was always angry, and it wasn't just me. My entire family suffered from poor mental health while we lived there. My brother was constantly depressed and would sleep for hours upon hours each day. My mom and dad fought most nights, and their marriage was suffering horribly. I was always mad at everyone and would scream at people over the tiniest things. We were not happy. All four of us were truly miserable during that time, and when we moved out, it was like we were completely different people. All of my anger went away. My brother's depression was basically gone. My parents were able to salvage their relationship. Being in that house was like having your energy drained out of you. The constant feeling of being on edge, and the smallest things would send you hurtling over. The second thing was sleep paralysis. Never in my life before or after living in that house had I experienced sleep paralysis. It happened to me multiple times a month in the years we lived there, and it wasn't just me. My mom experienced it too. We both told each other about waking up in the night and not being able to move while black shadows stood over us. One of my worst memories living there was waking up frozen one night and seeing a shadow standing in my closet. It just watched me from the darkness. I tried to move and call out for help, but I couldn't make a sound. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt at any moment it would come out of the closet for me, and just when I couldn't handle it any longer, I woke up in a cold sweat. When I finally fell back asleep, it happened again, only this time I was on my side, felt it reaching out and touch my back. My skin still crawls just thinking about it. I woke up screaming. First off, that sounds horrible, like a horrible experience, and the fact that you lived there for so long, I think it was 9 years, that must have been like torture to live there and have all those issues going on. I don't know if I believe in like energies of buildings and things, but sometimes there are places or people that feel wrong or off, so I kind of understand in that way, especially if your whole family was going through it. That is very scary, the fact that the house affected everyone that much. Kind of reminds me of the story of Amityville Horror. Maybe my problem is that I've just never lived anywhere that's been haunted. and I just need to find a haunted house to live in to actually experience something, because I've only really lived in like apartments and stuff almost my whole life. So this email stood out to me, specifically like this story, because the subject line says, "My house is haunted by a ghost called Daisy," and that just sounds like a good story or like a good book or something, so let's read it. Their first line is, "Heard you were asking for ghost stories and I just happened to live in a haunted house." Great, so it's like present moment that they're living in a haunted house. Sounds great. For some context, I currently live in England with both my parents and a younger sister. We have 2 cats and a dog. We are not religious. My dad is a skeptic, but the rest of us are believers of sorts. Essentially, unless something cannot be debunked at all, we take everything with a pinch of salt. Me, if I can explain it away to something else, I'm going to do that. If I hear a weird sound, I have animals. You know, I'm with you there. Our resident ghost is named Daisy. We don't know if that's its actual name, but that's the one it chose. Interesting. This occurred because in our living room, before we redecorated, there was a painting of flowers hanging up that would click and move, and if we didn't acknowledge it by saying hello or good morning or whatever, it would click louder or move further off the wall. There have been times where it almost flew off the wall. One day my mom asked if it wanted a name, and the picture clicked. We went through a series of names, and when we landed on Daisy, it did another click, so that's how it earned its name. Interesting. Daisy is relatively harmless, but sometimes she likes to cause mischief. Once when my mom was wrapping Christmas presents, a toy that had already been wrapped started making noise amongst the pile. She would have put it down to the toy being faulty or a button accidentally being pressed, but she knew there was no batteries in it, so it was strange for it to go off. Another time, a Tupperware tub that I had used as a packed lunch flew off the kitchen counter, and there was no way it could have fallen, given I had placed it right to the back of the counter touching the wall. Another time, I was laying in bed watching TV past my bedtime, and I was much younger, she clarifies, and suddenly there 3 loud bangs come from the wall joined with the spare room. As soon as I jumped under the covers and tried to sleep, there was no more bangs. I would have put this down to my parents or sister playing a prank on me, but at the time our spare room was full of junk and no one had been in there for years, and I was sharing the room with my sister, so I knew it wasn't her, and there were no footsteps leading away to indicate it could have been either of my parents. A few years later, I decided I wanted my own room, so we cleared out the spare room and made it mine. One night in that room, I was sleeping and suddenly felt someone slap me hard on the forehead. I woke up expecting to see one of my family members, but no one was there. I checked to see if it had been just a bug or water that had landed on my head from the ceiling, but there was no sign of either. My younger sister had a similar experience where she felt someone grab her thigh whilst she was in bed, despite being alone and nothing else being able to recreate the sensation of a hand squeezing her thigh. We often feel watched upstairs in general and are always hearing weird noises. I remember for a while, every night I thought I could hear someone pacing up and down the landing. I often remarked to my parents that I think someone is living in our attic because the amount of footsteps and shuffling around we hear at night. Another time I was home alone with my dog in the living room. At the time, the room above me would have been my room. I could hear footsteps walking across the ceiling diagonally, which I knew wouldn't be possible to do in my bedroom because of how my bed was placed. What made it even creepier is that my dog picked up on it and followed the sound of the footsteps, so I knew I wasn't just hearing things. Other things that have happened in the living room include the clock being thrown off the wall and a picture of one of my older sisters being thrown off the wall and into that sister's lap. Recently we decorated, and that meant we had to take down Daisy's painting and put it away. Since then we haven't had as much activity apart from still hearing footsteps and feeling watched every now and then. That alone convinces me that we experience at least some sort or some kind of genuine paranormal activity. Interesting. I wonder if you had tried to move the painting earlier on. Did this happen right when you guys moved in? Did you say that? Yeah, did it start from when you hung the is it the painting? Is the painting possessed by Daisy? Is that like haunted? First of all, y'all need to really write stories. Like, you need to actually sit down and write some, you know, stories about your experiences, because I think that would be amazing. Everyone loves a good ghost story. As a creative writer, I encourage everyone to do creative writing. It's very therapeutic. I love it. I did remember saying earlier in this video that I want to be haunted by a ghost because I don't think it would hurt me, but it's slapping you, it's grabbing you. I don't know about that. I don't necessarily want to, you know, deal with that. Okay, we're gonna take a little break from the longer stories and do a little short story. This one comes from Alicia. This happened to me when I was about 7 years old, and to this day I still can't explain it. I was spending the night at my grandparents' house, and I don't know why, but whenever I slept there, I used to wake up in the middle of the night because while I was sleeping, I felt hands pulling on my head. And even though it might have been a nightmare, I could feel the hands touching my skin so clearly. One night I got out of my bed because it happened again, and I went to the kitchen to grab a glass of milk. Something that already felt really weird at the time was that someone had left all the lights turned on, which never happened because my grandparents always turned off the lights before going to sleep. So I drank my glass of milk and got out of the kitchen. I had to go through the living room to get to my room, and the second I got there, the lights turned off. No one was there, so I have no clue how it could have happened. I got really scared and tried to walk through the living room as fast as I can, but something stopped me. I saw a man sitting in the sofa reading a newspaper. It couldn't have been my grandfather because he didn't look anything like him. I ran to my room and hid under the blankets and never dared to get out of bed in the middle of the night ever again. So the next one is another short story, and this comes from Amber, and she says that she's also a bit of a skeptic as well, but doesn't know how to explain her experience. So let's listen. A couple of years ago, I couldn't sleep and went out to the living room to watch a movie and try to fall asleep on the couch to not wake my boyfriend. I sat on the couch and was about to turn on the TV when I looked over and saw the outline of a white t-shirt in my guest bedroom. I didn't see a face or arms, just a white t-shirt in the shadows of the room. I know I was seeing the room because I saw my yellow speaker boxes that are just inside the door. It was really weird because I wasn't scared at all. I just kept staring at it, trying to see if it was my eyes playing tricks on me. After a minute or two, I decided to go lay back in bed with my boyfriend and chalk what I saw up to being half asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I told my boyfriend what happened and that I didn't get sleep after that, but we both agreed it was because I was still a little bit asleep. I got out of bed and went to grab our dog food bowls, which are in the living room, and when I looked over at the guest bedroom, the door was shut. At this point, I got freaked out because I know for a fact that the door was open when I came out in the middle of the night. I honestly get really jealous reading these stories. Like, I want stuff like that to happen. I will stare at the darkness of my closet. I have a couch in my bedroom and I will stare at the clothes all on it, trying to think if it's like a person and like wishing it was a ghost. I probably shouldn't wish for that, but I just want to experience something like this. Is that weird? Because I want it to be true so badly that I would do anything to experience this. I actually used to live across the street from a cemetery. The only paranormal experience I personally have ever had, I've told a million times on my channel, so I'm not going to tell it again, but I do have like one that is odd that I can't explain, with a woman who wore Victorian clothes right by the cemetery, because I grew up next to a cemetery. That explains a lot, actually. And you'd think of all places I'd experienced something there. One time I went there in the middle of the night. Not a thing, not one thing. Although I guess spirits don't necessarily haunt their bodies, right? Because that would be weird. They're not gonna stay in the cemetery. If there were such a thing as spirits, they would probably go to like where they lived. Houses, places of meaning. But anyway, that's a long way to say I'm just jealous. I'm jealous. I will for me to see things and see things moving. I'll sit on the toilet in the middle of the night, pitch black, and I think the door's moving, but it's probably not, because this is just an apartment. Probably no one died here. I don't know. It's old. It's an old apartment, but okay. So the next one, we actually have a photo that pairs with the story. So this comes from Kai from the UK. I will link their Instagram down below. So we used to live in this house when I was around 5 years old until I was around 10. This happened, I think, when I was around 8. So for context, this bathroom used to be the back bedroom. It's an old house in the UK, and back in the day, they didn't have indoor plumbing. So at some point, many people had squeezed small bathrooms into their houses. Others sacrificed a bedroom. My mom had a small mirror that she stood on the windowsill, and stood in front of this mirror was a cylinder-shaped bottle of perfume. These things stayed generally in the same place for a long time, in between uses obviously. One day I was in my room playing and my mom was downstairs. We both hear a big crash-like sound, so I go back to playing and my mom comes upstairs. She calls me to the bathroom and asks if I did it. I say no. The mirror is flat on the floor with the side pressed up perfectly against the bath, with the reflective side facing up. The perfume bottle is standing on top of the mirror. The mirror mirror is smashed in the shape of the mirror as if the bottle was used to smash it. This was on a rare in England, warm, windless summer's day. We both still remember it vividly. Our backyard backed onto a large cemetery. Our area was built on roughly 60 years after the cemetery was opened. Hey, cemetery. During this time, there was a cholera outbreak and 700 victims are buried in unmarked mass graves somewhere possibly yards away from my house. There's a monument to them all nearby. I have no proof of this, but it's reasonable to believe that some of these graves could have been built over when building these houses. Yes. To this day, we're not entirely sure what caused it, but our explanation is a ghost of some kind. My city is known for having a lot of haunted buildings. Interesting. And then we take a look at this photo, and then they had clarified on there where the mirror and the perfume was and where it ended up, which that's nuts. That's so weird. I would fully believe if there were 700 victims buried in unmarked graves that if they were building, they wouldn't regard that. I think that happens a lot when it had been so long ago that they don't care to worry about what's underneath the earth when they're doing the foundation building and things for buildings. So I would fully believe that your house, or your old house, because you don't live there anymore, is sitting on top of unmarked graves, which that's very horrifying. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here. I don't even know how many I read, probably like 5 or 6. I don't know how I'm gonna get through all of these, but I love reading your stories, so thank you so much for all the submissions. I will be doing a part 2 of this next week that'll go up before Halloween, so you'll have another one of these videos to enjoy on Halloween night, maybe if you're not doing anything. I think this would be a great video to watch then. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.